I'm here wrestling with my own issues. I'm divorced because my wife cheated on me. It's been almost a year since the divorce. I don't have any kids, and my immediate family isn't nearby. I'm telling you this because I'm interested in another man's wife. I'm not sure if it's love, need, lust, infatuation, or just a strong desire for her. But I do know that revenge plays a part in it. I don't know her well, but I've been seeing her frequently during lunch breaks since we work in the same building. I've been trying to gather as much information about her as possible. I'm determined to have her, but then what? It's a disturbing feeling, wanting someone so intensely that I'd be willing to take her forcibly if necessary. I've learned she's around 30, with a petite figure. Her mamillas poke out from behind her braless blouses, and she wears mini skirts or tight pants that accentuate her curves. There are never any panty lines, suggesting she wears string underwear or goes without. She's married to what seems like a loser. He doesn't appreciate her and is willing to risk losing her. What infuriates me most is that he's the one who broke up my marriage by sleeping with my wife. Now, I want to make him pay by being with his wife. I convince myself that by taking her, I'm doing her a favor. In case you haven't realized, I'm messed up. I've been like this ever since I caught my wife cheating. I came home early from work one day, not paying much attention, and found her in bed with another man. I flew into a rage, pulling him off her and punching him up while she screamed. I gave him a good thrashing, then threw him out undressed onto the street. I didn't return his clothes, but I tossed his wallet and car keys onto the grass. He left, and I never heard from him again until fate intervened. When I returned to the bedroom, my wife was hastily getting dressed and crying, trying to explain herself. But I didn't want to hear it. I gave her an ultimatum: leave within an hour or face my wrath. I stuck to my word and waited 2 hours before returning home, hoping she'd be gone. She left a note, which I almost ignored, but decided to read anyway. Message from Rachel. Dear Kevin, I need to confess something. I made a terrible mistake, a huge one. Jim doesn't hold any significance for me. He's just an old school friend I bumped into. We had a romantic history back in school, but that's all it was. You knew I wasn't inexperienced when we got married. Jim was my first love. Memories from the past resurfaced when I saw him at the mall. Initially, it was just a reunion between old friends, but then he started flirting, and I found myself reminiscing about the past. He asked where I lived, and we ended up at our house. I should have known better, but I let my guard down. Once inside, I showed him around, and when we reached the bedroom, he embraced me and kissed me. It felt like déjà vu, like we were back in our youth. Then things escalated, and we ended up being physical engaged. I deeply regret it, and I'm truly sorry for hurting you. Please consider giving me another chance. I promise to be a faithful and devoted wife from now on. I love you more than anything, Kevin. With love, Rachel. The note cut deep, especially now that I knew who was behind it. I used to love my wife, but I'm one of those who think love can fade away. In my case, it was gone, replaced by a need for revenge. Revenge isn't something you desire, it's something you feel compelled to seek, and I was determined to get mine. I called in sick the next day to sort out our finances, changing our checking and savings accounts and canceling most of our credit cards, keeping only 2 in my name for personal expenses. I'm tough, and I'm not afraid to admit it. When Rachel's dad called asking about our issues, I exploded, telling him exactly what happened. 2 days later, Karen, Rachel's younger sister, called, but I stopped her when she started apologizing for Rachel. She asked about Rachel's belongings, and I gave her an hour to collect them. When Karen mentioned a few more items, I got irritated and responded bluntly. Then Karen asked if there were more personal items left, and I told her Rachel had an hour to grab what she wanted. Karen mentioned a few more items, and I got angry again, responding sharply. I could hear Rachel in the background on the phone, so I hung up. I contacted my lawyer and had him prepare the divorce papers, leaving Rachel with nothing. We were renting the house, and we each had our own car. Other than that, I just kept the savings accounts. Rachel didn't contest the divorce. I made it clear I'd only talk to Karen on my terms. Damn, I was tough. Karen was attractive, even more so than Rachel, and probably less experienced due to her weak husband. I was preparing to move out of the house, and the divorce was finalized. I called Karen and offered her the chance to collect some of her sister's belongings, explaining that I was moving to an apartment and didn't want to deal with transporting her things. I made it clear that if she didn't come for them, I'd dispose of them. She promptly agreed to come that evening. I specified she could come alone or with her husband, but Rachel was not welcome. When Karen arrived later, she was alone, claiming her husband was busy. I knew he was likely afraid, aware of what awaited him, just as Karen anticipated our encounter. We went to the bedroom where her sister's belongings were packed. As she reached for a box, I interrupted, jokingly saying she hadn't paid yet. She looked at me incredulously, stating she wasn't there for closeness. I chuckled, clarifying it was only lovemaking, not love, and insinuating she had long desired it. After helping her load some boxes into her car, I returned to find her upset. She accused me of using her for pleasure, expressing disbelief at my coldness. I responded bluntly, attributing my changed demeanor to her sister's actions, comparing her fate to her husband's. I urged her to leave and reminded her to reveal her infidelity to her husband, expressing my disdain for cheating wives. She left angrily, taking the last box. Though she was satisfying in bed, I knew my motives were driven by revenge against her sister. Lovemaking could never replace love, but my desire for retribution consumed me. I was fixated on revenge, though I knew it wouldn't resolve my issues. It was simply something I felt compelled to do, regardless of its morality. Her name was Carly, a charming woman I encountered regularly. Sometimes you're drawn to someone inexplicably. I often saw her at the restaurant with her friends, including Marcia, an acquaintance aware of my divorce. When Marcia dined alone one day, I invited her to join me for lunch, seeking conversation. We discussed family matters and general topics, maintaining a casual friendship. She inquired about my life post-divorce. Everyone knew Rachel had cheated, but the identity of her partner remained a mystery. If anyone dared to ask, I simply shrugged it off, claiming ignorance. Marcia mentioned the new girl at work, Carly, who had moved with her husband Jim about a year ago. The mention of Jim struck a nerve. Marcia eyed me warily, questioning if I intended to pursue Carly, aware of my reputation since the divorce. I assured Marcia I merely found Carly attractive and was curious about her. I gathered more intel on Jim to confirm my suspicions. Once convinced, I was determined to seduce Carly, despite hating myself for it. During lunch with a friend, Carly and her husband unexpectedly walked in. It was the same man I had caught with my wife. Despite my anger, I maintained composure, resisting the urge to confront him again. He didn't recognize me, but I recognized him, fueling my resolve to pursue his wife. One day, finding Carly alone, I struck up a conversation, introducing myself as Marcia's friend to ease any tension. She responded warmly, and I suggested sharing a table, joking that she'd have to cover her own bill. She laughed, and we enjoyed lunch together, during which she opened up about her husband's rough start in the town. Afterward, I expressed my pleasure in meeting her and extended an open invitation for future lunches. I faced a dilemma. I was drawn to Carly, yet driven by the need for revenge against her husband. I grappled with conflicting emotions, unsure of my next move. Despite my inner turmoil, I found myself drawn to Carly daily, often catching her smiling at me. I casually mentioned altering my lunch hour, anticipating not seeing her again, yet she adjusted hers, seeking my company. We began sharing lunch almost daily, complicating my feelings further. We were growing close, and I found myself developing strong feelings for her. One day, I mustered the courage to express my admiration, telling her she was one of the loveliest and kindest women I'd ever met, but I added, if she weren't married, I'd ask her out. She seemed uneasy, responding, but I am married, Kevin. Though my marriage isn't perfect, I would never betray my husband. It wouldn't sit right with me. Intrigued, I inquired about her marriage troubles. Tears welled up in her eyes as she confessed suspicions of her husband's infidelity. I offered comfort, holding her trembling hand, silently cursing any man foolish enough to jeopardize a relationship with her. I couldn't help but wonder if he was back with Rachel. Feeling a sense of urgency, I urged her to meet me after work, insisting on discussing something important in private. She hesitated, wary of the implications, but I assured her it was crucial. Eventually, she agreed to meet, but only in a public setting. At dinner, she shared her conversation with Marge, learning about my painful divorce. Sympathizing, she expressed her fear of facing a similar betrayal from her husband. It struck me how vulnerable she was, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was falling for another man's wife. A twist I hadn't anticipated. Carly, there are a few things I need to share with you. I understand you're married, but I've developed feelings for you. Please, Kevin, let's not go any further. I'm a married woman. Carly, it's crucial that I get this off my chest. Please hear me out. As I mentioned, I've fallen for you. The problem is, I've become hardened after discovering my wife's affair. You've probably heard rumors about how I've changed. I wish I could shake off this anger and resentment, but it's always with me. My wife and her lover planted this chip on my shoulder. Initially, I sought revenge. I planned to find his wife and confront them both, but now I'm faced with a dilemma. The woman I intended to seek vengeance upon is the one I've come to love. Carly interrupted. Kevin, you don't have to tell me all this. It's deeply personal, and I can sense the pain in your words. Please, Carly, let me finish. As I was saying, I had intended to exact revenge on my wife's lover by targeting his wife. Now, I'm in love with the very person I planned to hurt. Carly covered her face in shock, realizing the man was her husband and the woman I loved was her. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Dear God, this is hard to believe. How can you be so sure? Were you planning to violate me as revenge against my husband? She sobbed harder, and I reached out to comfort her, but she recoiled. Please, not now, she pleaded. I need time to process. Carly, a year ago, I found the man in my bedroom. I attacked him and threw him out undressed. All I knew was his name was Jim. I retrieved the note Rachel had left me from my pocket and handed it to Carly. For some reason, I had kept it. She wept as she read it. For the past 6 months, I've watched you come to the restaurant for lunch. Day by day, I waited to see you. You were the only bright spot in my life, though I didn't even know you. Slowly, I began to fall for you. At the time, I didn't realize you were married. I refrained from approaching you because of my temper and my plans for revenge. Then one day, I asked Marge about you. Learning you were married made me feel awful. I wanted to get to know you better, but I didn't want to disrupt your marriage. Another day, I saw your husband join you for lunch. That's when I recognized him. I did everything to resist the urge to confront him again. If you had been any other woman, I would have taken my revenge in front of him by now. Carly sat there, tears rolling down her face as she held her hands together. I found myself falling for you, Carly, and I couldn't bring myself to damage the woman I love. But now, I'm in deep turmoil. I want to hurt your husband without causing you pain. I also want to be physical, engaged with you. It's been a long time since I've experienced that connection. This past year has been consumed by thoughts of revenge. I suspect your husband has reunited with Rachel, his childhood sweetheart, who is now divorced. How do you feel about me, Carly? I need to understand so I can figure out what to do. I promise, regardless of your feelings for me, I won't cause you any injury. Not now. I know I come off as an idiot, a vengeful person, but there's another side to me that hasn't seen the light of day for a year now. I want to show you that side. Please give me a chance to reveal that I can be kinder, more compassionate. Deep down, I believe you're the woman who can bring out that nicer side of me. Revenge is blocking his way. Help me, Carly. Help me get my revenge on your husband. Then, if you want, we could build a real loving life together. My God, Kevin. So much to process at once. My mind is flooded with questions. And right now, I don't have any answers. I'm not even sure about my feelings for you, my husband, or even for myself. I need time to think about all you've told me before I can give you any kind of answers. Please understand that I'm not disregarding you or avoiding the issue. I want to help you. You seem to be in so much pain, but I just don't know what to do. After a somewhat unsettling dinner, I walked Carly to her car. I apologized if I had upset her, but felt she deserved to know the truth. I assured her I would do whatever I could to work through our problems together. Maybe it wasn't the right time to reveal my growing feelings for her, but I couldn't keep them bottled up any longer. I just needed her to understand. She allowed me to give her a light hug before she left. So far, I hadn't resolved anything. If anything, I may have made matters worse. Perhaps disclosing her husband's past wasn't the right approach. I had no clue what she was thinking, but I hoped everything worked out for her. The next day, I eagerly anticipated seeing her at lunch. I needed to know her feelings and thoughts. I went to our usual restaurant waiting for her, but she never arrived. My God, what had I done? Did she confront her husband? Did he try to damage her? If he did, I swore I'd take action. Or perhaps she went the other route and told him about me and my intentions. Her absence had me worried sick. I debated whether to call her or wait another day. It was difficult to focus on my work. I did my best to distract myself from thoughts of Carly. When I arrived home, my phone rang, and it was Carly. She sounded upset. Kevin, I need to see you. I know I said I shouldn't come over, but things have changed. No, I have to see you tonight. Can I stop by, please? Oh, Carly, I was so worried about you. Today was tough after not seeing you at lunch. Did that idiot hurt you? If he did, I swear I'll take care of him. Yes, come over right away. I'll be waiting for you. As I hung up, the doorbell rang. Who could it be? Opening the door, I found Carly standing there, smiling. I followed you home, but needed to be sure if you were sincere about helping me. Your response on the phone assured me you were. Sorry for the test, but I had to know. Relief washed over me seeing her. I hugged her tightly, feeling comforted by her presence. Why didn't you go to work today? I asked. She explained, last night I tried to sort things out in my head. Jim, my husband, came home late as usual, claiming to have worked late. I tried to be affectionate, but he brushed me off, saying he was tired. I thought to myself, if a man turned down someone like Carly, he must have just satisfied his desires or lost his mind. Carly continued. This morning I waited for Jim to leave and then searched through the computer files for clues. I work with computers, so I managed to trace a few files with the information you provided. Here's what I found. Handing me a stack of papers, she offered to explain instead of making me read through them. Then she said, firstly, I don't love Jim anymore. After discovering what I did, I think I despise him. I won't tolerate being used, and that's one concern I have with you. I held her hands reassuringly. She added, I'm not sure how I feel about you. Part of me cares deeply, but another part warns me to be cautious, fearing you might just use me for your revenge. So for now, I want to keep things on hold. If you truly care, you'll understand and wait until our lives are clearer before we proceed. What do you think? I smiled. That's all I ask for, a chance to prove myself. I genuinely care. And if I start rushing, just tell me to slow down. Can we seal our agreement with a kiss before we dive into your detective work? She grinned. No, let's get started now. My husband applied for this job instead of being transferred as he claimed. That was his first lie. This was his hometown. I thought he wanted to move back. I agreed because I loved him. He went to his class reunion 16 months ago. I couldn't attend due to a family engagement. He said class reunions are usually boring. Come to think of it, my wife had a class reunion too. I was on a business trip. She wanted to see her old friends. I never thought about it until now. You're a pretty good private investigator. Here are some emails between them before and after the reunion. They were expecting to meet. When you caught them having lovemaking 4 months later, it wasn't their first time. They had been doing it for 4 months already. I got angry. She told me it just happened. I thought my revenge was over, but now things changed. Carly could see my hurt. I told Carly I wasn't mad at her, but being made a betrayed by my ex-wife pissed me off. I needed to be kissed to calm down. She screamed, "Stop, you idiot, I'll kiss you." She came up to me, kissed me gently, then with more feeling. As we sat back down, I thanked her. She said, "My pleasure, and I mean pleasure. Let's get back to work. I can't be here all night." Here are copies of my husband's cell phone records. He called a number almost daily, belonging to Rachel Miller, my wife's maiden name. I didn't know she had a cell phone. When was it purchased? According to my husband's phone records, it was about a month before he was attacked by a couple of thugs named Kevin. That means he had the phone before you caught them. It might explain why they got away with it for so long, and why she didn't fight for more money during the divorce. Some of this might have come out and wouldn't have helped her case. What about you, Carly? You're still married to the idiot. What do you want us to do? She caught my slip of us instead of you. I want to take him for everything we have. I want to make him regret it. I want to embarrass him publicly without losing my dignity or you. Carly, can you stay in the house without giving anything away? No problem. I won't sleep with him. I can cook dinners. If he sees his girlfriend, I'll be fine. Let's go shopping. Use joint credit cards. Spend freely, run up debt, take cash advances, invest the money. Kevin, you're a stockbroker. Why not handle the investments? I want you to trust me. I'm not taking any of it. If we make love, that's my revenge. We started with credit cards. She kissed me before leaving, promising lunch the next day. Instead, we hit banks, taking cash advances with joint cards. Smartly, she didn't max any cards. We discovered he used one for a motel twice a week. For 3 days, we repeated the process with 7 cards. I invested the money in hard-to-access accounts in my name, making her a co-signer for safety. I dug into my ex's life, but found little. I shared what I had with Carly, and she took charge. Rachel now worked at her husband's company as a secretary. Carly uncovered their off-duty hangouts. They were careless, thinking nobody noticed. Carly's friends documented everything. Carly was beloved at work, a computer whiz without the geeky vibe. She helped fellow secretaries, earning their respect and protection. I pondered revenge. I couldn't use Carly, the one good thing in my life, like my cheating ex. but I desired payback. I relied on Carly for ideas. Carly refused lovemaking, not wanting to stoop to my ex's level. She cared for me, but remained married. I needed a plan. I'd lived on the edge, associating with pimps and promiscuous womans. They trusted me with their money. Some hookers became friends, despite their lifestyle differences. I called a pimp friend for a favor, promising a reward. He agreed, impressed by my plan. Carly and I planned our sting. She hesitated about public exposure, but I assured her I'd protect her. Her smile hinted at deeper feelings. I asked her to take a few days off, whether as vacation, sick leave, or otherwise. We had limited time to set up the sting, so it had to run smoothly. "What's the plan, Kevin? How will you get revenge without involving me? What do you need me to do?" "First, stop with the questions," I said, smiling. "Next Wednesday, they have room 109 booked until 10 in the evening. I'll reserve the same room for Wednesday morning. While I set up a remote VCR, you'll visit my lawyer, Sally Hawk. You'll need a divorce decree drafted up and signed by Jim that night." "What if he refuses to sign, Kevin?" "Don't worry, Carly, he'll likely sign. I'll explain the full plan later. Or do you prefer a surprise?" "Kevin, you're making me nervous. Your excitement is contagious." "I only want you close to me. This revenge is for both of us. Then, I hope you'll feel the same about me as I do about you." "Are we going too far, Kevin? I just want to even the score." "We'll cause a stir, but their lives will continue, unless they refuse to sign your papers. Now here's the plan. They usually meet between 5 and 6. We'll target Jim first. My friend Big Louie and his girls, Sally and Sue, will pay him a visit. They're promiscuous womans with syphilis, paid to have unprotected lovemaking with him. Big Louie will ensure Jim cooperates." "How do you know these people, Kevin?" "They're my clients. They bring in a lot of money and I help them invest it." Rachel can choose between sleeping with Jim or Big Louie. While they're occupied, we'll be in the van with the remote control. When the time's right, you'll walk in, catch them, and demand a divorce. Then you'll offer Jim a choice: sign the papers or face exposure. Big Louie will ensure your safety. "Well, Carly, what do you think? Is it a go?" She smiled. "You're doing this more for me, aren't you? I'm beginning to like this side of you. It's a go." Over the next days, we finalized everything. Sally Hawk, our lawyer, wanted to serve Jim herself. Big Louie was prepared, and I rented the motel room for Wednesday afternoon. At lunch, we saw my ex-sister-in-law with another man. Carly played along, kissing me provocatively to stir up attention. I gestured to the waiter. "Isn't she stunning?" He agreed. "Yes, sir." Turning to her, I said, "You're mine, aren't you, sweetheart?" "Only you, baby. I belong to only you." She smiled. Though I hoped it was true, I knew she was playing up for my ex-sister-in-law who never showed up. I wondered why. After lunch, Carly and I bought the necessary equipment. At the electronics store, she confirmed that the restaurant kiss was genuine, albeit partly to rile my ex-sister-in-law. Wednesday morning arrived and tension mounted. Every detail had to be perfect for the sting. Carly sorted the divorce papers with Sally while I set up the video gear at the motel. We met Big Louie, who impressed Carly with his reassurance of her safety. Earlier, Carly sent an email to Jim and Rachel posing as each other, planting doubt between them. "Sweetheart, I have a very special treat for you tonight. Please, when you arrive, don't ask any questions. I know you will be surprised. Just go along. Also, to make it extra special, let's not communicate the rest of this day. I want this to be a night that you will always remember. Love you, me." At 4:45 p.m., Carly and I parked in our van and waited. At exactly 5 p.m., Jim entered the room. We were tense. This was a significant operation for us. At 5:15 p.m., we saw Big Louie, Sally, and Sue approach the room. As they knocked, we activated our cameras. We waited to start recording until the action began. We had 2 cameras, one above the lights and another inside the smoke alarm. The picture quality from the pinhole camera was remarkable. I made a mental note to retrieve the cameras the next day. Carly and I were on edge as Big Louie knocked. When Jim opened the door, he seemed surprised. Louie explained their purpose, and Jim hesitated but eventually complied. Sally and Sue, both attractive despite being hookers, worked their magic on Jim, who appeared nervous but went along with it. Carly watched through our remote, feeling a mix of emotions. She felt both sadness and a sense of satisfaction. She was sad because her husband of 5 years had chosen to betray her, yet she was also glad that her revenge had begun. A knock sounded on the door, and Big Louie opened it to find Rachel standing there. He welcomed her inside. Wondering what was happening, Rachel spotted her boyfriend Jim lying on the bed. Confusion clouded her thoughts as she entered the room, recalling Jim's email hinting at something special that night. Upon entering, Big Louie instructed Rachel to undress. Fear gripped her as she looked at the imposing figure of the large man commanding her. He assured her he wouldn't lay a hand on her. His presence was solely to protect the women. Sue urged Rachel to hurry and strip, reminding her they were short on time. Feeling unsure, Rachel began to undress, unaware that cameras were capturing every moment, both audio and visual. Meanwhile, Jim and Rachel indulged in their desires. Afterward, as Rachel came down from her euphoria, Sally began to dress. A knock interrupted outside. Sally Hawk, our lawyer, had arrived. After inquiring about the situation, she glanced at the monitor, witnessing Jim and Rachel engaging in their affair, exchanging their venereal disease. The promiscuous womans, Sally and Sue, returned to their vehicle, having completed their task effectively. Big Louie remained vigilant outside, protecting Carly and Sally Hawk in case they needed assistance. Carly and Sally approached the door, with Carly being the first to enter. Furious, Carly unleashed a barrage of profanities upon Jim and Rachel, demanding a divorce immediately. Jim and Rachel, caught in the act, knew there was no way to justify their actions. Carly expressed her disappointment in Jim's betrayal and her determination to end the marriage. Then Sally Hawk walked in. Jim, meet my lawyer, Sally Hawk. She'll explain the divorce terms. I want this process started tonight so I can get you out of my life ASAP, and you can be with your girlfriend. Both Jim and Rachel got out of bed and began dressing. Jim's arousal vanished at the sound of Carly's voice. He didn't get satisfaction, and they didn't shower, so the risk of venereal disease lingered. I'm Sally Hawk, representing Carly. The terms are simple. 1. Carly leaves tonight taking what she wants within 24 hours. You won't be there. The apartment's yours. 2. You pay all bills up to today, including joint credit cards. Carly hands over joint cards, never uses them again, and handles her own cards. 3. Each manages their own car, insurance, payments, and maintenance. 4. Carly gets $8,000 from your joint savings tomorrow. You both keep your $401, yours with over $80,000, hers with $15,000. If you agree, sign now. It's final. Carly already has. Just sign as the husband. Sally handed him the document while Rachel watched. Jim asked, "What if I don't sign tonight?" Sally replied, "It's void in 5 minutes. Then we'll pursue the same terms in court, plus half your $401K. It's a good deal. I suggest you take it." Carly went to the closet, retrieved the VCR tape, and stated, "This records tonight's events, evidence for our divorce." Jim retorted, "I'm not that naive. You can't use it. You took it without permission." Sally chuckled, "You're really clueless. We won't use it in court, but we'll send copies to your company and its headquarters. They won't condone married employees having affairs." Jim moved forward, but Big Louie reappeared. "You weren't planning to injure my friends, were you, Jim?" Jim backed down. "Jim, you have 3 minutes to decide," Sally declared. Rachel whispered to Jim, "Sally Hawk represented my husband and I got nothing. She's top-notch. Take the deal or face trouble. Plus, we'll lose our jobs if the tape leaks." 1 minute left, Sally warned. Jim shouted, "Wait, I'll sign, but I want the tape." Carly handed the tape to Big Louie, along with a $500 bonus. Sally reiterated, "This deal is final. Any issues, contact me. Don't heckle Carly, or you'll be arrested." Jim signed, received a copy, and Carly and Sally left. Big Louie gave Jim the tape, then left with the others. Carly and Sally returned to the van, jubilant. Carly kissed me quickly, but the mood shifted when Sally spoke. "Kevin, until the divorce is final, you can't see Carly. We can't risk anyone seeing you together. As long as you're not linked, everything should proceed as planned. We may face challenges with recent credit card transactions, but our documents support us unless Carly is accused of fraud. That's why I allowed Jim to keep his $401K. There's enough money for banks to pursue him if he tries to declare bankruptcy. There's no money in Carly's name except the $8,000 she'll withdraw tomorrow. I suggest keeping it in the same bank, but only under your name to avoid scrutiny." Sally added, "After the divorce, there should be no more issues, and you two can reconnect if you choose. Kevin, you mentioned your employer's offer to set up a brokerage firm in another state for a couple of months. I recommend taking it soon. Carly will be fine, and I'll keep an eye on her. Right now, you're Carly's biggest concern. I can't force you, but I strongly advise it." Carly cried, and I comforted her, knowing Sally was right. I was the current problem, the weak link. I kissed Carly goodbye, promising to wait for her after the divorce. Sally and Carly left, with Sally driving Carly home to gather her belongings with the rented U-Haul. Sally assured I could call her for updates or if I needed to talk about Carly. Alone, I checked the monitor and saw Jim and Rachel had left. I packed up my equipment, grabbing an extra tape copy, just in case. Funny how no one questions a backup. With everything gathered, I headed home, feeling happy for Carly, yet sad for myself. The following day, I spoke with my boss about the temporary job in Chicago, scheduled to start on Friday. I hoped everything would work out for Carly. She truly deserved the best. Seemingly, she had achieved her revenge, leaving me feeling isolated. Assisting Carly had been enjoyable, and my affection for her remained strong. Upon arriving in Chicago, I immersed myself in work as we launched a new brokerage firm from the ground up. During my off hours, thoughts of Carly consumed me. Over the initial weeks, I wondered about her well-being. One day, I reached out to Sally Hawk, who reassured me that everything was proceeding smoothly. Jim's attempts to contest the divorce decree were met with resistance from Sally, prompting his lawyer to advise against further confrontation. Jim's unfounded accusations against Carly lacked evidence, leading Sally to warn him of potential legal repercussions. Sally also revealed that Jim and Rachel had contracted syphilis, requiring treatment and prohibiting carnal activity until recovery. This news brought a smile to my face. Furthermore, Sally informed me that Carly had moved into a pleasant apartment near her workplace, taking half of their belongings to furnish her new home. She was advised to refrain from mentioning me to avoid any connections being made. Although she wasn't dating anyone yet, it had only been a few weeks. In private conversations, Carly expressed her longing for me and acknowledged my kindness. Time didn't fly by during my time in Chicago, as much as I wish it had. I didn't feel much better than I did before seeking revenge. Back then, at least I could see Carly every day. I took a break and visited my parents in Michigan for Thanksgiving, needing to escape for a while. It was good to be with family. I took my sister Christmas shopping and bought gifts for everyone, including engagement and wedding rings for Carly, hoping for a future together. Returning to Chicago after Thanksgiving, I anticipated about 3 more weeks there. The cold, windy loneliness of the city weighed heavily on me, despite its beautiful lights. With the new agents, we successfully launched the business, attracting many clients eager to invest before year-end. Back in Ohio, my boss praised our achievements, though I hoped my personal life would also improve. 2 days before Christmas, upon returning to my apartment, I called Sally Hawk. She was pleased to hear from me and asked about the business. I inquired about Carly and the progress of the divorce. Sally hesitated before revealing it was finalized 2 days prior. Though she couldn't provide Carly's number, she promised to inform her of my return. Feeling uncertain, I pondered Carly's thoughts during my absence. Deciding to visit our favorite restaurant where we used to lunch together, I hoped to see her. Marcia, a friend, spotted me and joined me. Hoping for insight, we exchanged pleasantries. Marcia shared updates on her family and upcoming holidays, offering a glimpse into life since I'd been away. I inquired if Carly still worked for the company. Marcia confirmed she did, but mentioned her recent divorce, which happened quickly. She observed that Carly seemed less cheerful now, refusing dates and focusing on work. Marcia felt sorry for her, but believed Carly needed to navigate through it on her own. Despite this, everyone still cared for her and hoped she'd find the right partner, as she deserved better than a cheating husband. I asked Marcia if Carly was at work that day. She confirmed she was, but had received a call an hour ago and left for the afternoon instead of having lunch. Carly wouldn't return until the week after Christmas. I wished Marcia a Merry Christmas and asked her to send my regards to her family before heading home. Upon arriving, I found nothing on the answering machine. Feeling a bit down, the phone rang, and I hoped it was Carly, but it turned out to be another telemarketer asking for money. Frustrated, I hung up. I realized Carly might not necessarily call me about her investments, as other agents could have updated my client files while I was away. I decided to call the office to check on Carly's accounts, but reached voicemail. Glancing at the clock, I noticed it was already 5:12 p.m., realizing the offices would remain closed until Monday for the holidays. I found myself in the dark during a holiday weekend with all the offices closed. Frustrated, I wondered if I still had a chance with Carly or if I'd lost her for good. The uncertainty was unbearable. I needed answers. The phone rang, and I hurried to answer it. It was Sally, my lawyer, informing me she relayed my return to Carly and that the divorce was finalized. Jim's attempts to contest it failed, forcing him to use over half his $401K to cover credit card charges. Grateful for Sally's update, I thanked her and wished her a Merry Christmas. A knock on the door revealed Mary, my neighbor, who had kindly collected my mail and tidied up my apartment while I was away. I invited her in briefly. She was a kind, older woman who cleaned apartments for extra income, often attending to mine twice a week. Mary handed me my mail and offered a tray of homemade holiday cookies. I asked her to wait a moment as I had a gift for her too. I presented her with an envelope containing $300 bills for Christmas. Grateful, she thanked me and left. Mary's kindness was a bright spot in the world, and I appreciated her presence. Feeling hungry, I called the local pizza shop for delivery, opting to stay in for the night. I requested a pizza and asked them to stop by the grocery store to pick up a 12-pack of Miller Lite beer. Living in a smaller city had its perks, including hometown conveniences like this. I opted to switch on the TV for the latest news while awaiting my pizza delivery. Half an hour later, the doorbell chimed. Assuming it was the pizza guy, I rose to collect my order. Upon opening the door, to my surprise, Carly stood there with a broad grin. Tears welled up in my eyes as I exclaimed, "I thought you were the pizza guy." She chuckled. "Sorry to disappoint you. No pizza, just me." I ushered her into the living room and enveloped her in a hug. She felt comforting as always. "I missed you, Carly. Terribly missed you. It's wonderful to see you again." Before she could respond, the doorbell rang again. This time it was the pizza delivery guy with my order. After swiftly paying him, I returned to Carly. "Hungry? We've got pizza and beer," I offered, holding them up. Carly, still smiling, remarked, "You're quite the character, you know." I had everything planned to say, and now I can't even think straight. I need to tell you a few things, then we can enjoy the pizza while it's hot. I know you hate cold pizza. "All right, big guy, I missed you too. By the way, I'm officially divorced now. Just found out today that you were back. I didn't want to leave a phone message. That seemed too impersonal. I left work early after Sally informed me of your return. I went out to get you a Christmas present of sorts. You'll see it after we eat. It's not often you treat me to dinner, so let's dig in." As I fetched paper plates, I asked her about the nature of the present. She flashed that heartwarming smile and remarked, "You'll see. Now eat your pizza and pass me a beer." Chuckling, she relaxed. As we dined, we discussed her job and its success. I shared details about the agency we launched, skirting around the looming issues. They would be addressed soon. After satisfying our hunger, Carly turned to me and asked, "Are you ready for your kind of a present now?" I grinned and replied, "Absolutely, where is it?" Carly presented a small sack resembling a lunch bag. "I'll be right back," she announced. As she exited the room, I discreetly retrieved the ring I had purchased for her from a drawer and slipped it into my pocket. From the bedroom, she called out, "Are you ready?" I responded, "I think so." Upon her return, she declared, "I bought this kind of present for you today. You can unwrap it if you'd like." Standing before me in a lacy red silk bra and matching lingerie, with a small red silk bow in her hair, she said, "I'm no longer married, so there's no cheating involved. If you want your present, we can head to the bedroom, and you can unwrap it there." Tears streamed down my face as the woman I had yearned for over a year stood before me, offering herself. With resolve, I looked at her and said, "On one condition." Retrieving the ring from my pocket, I continued, "If you'll marry me." Overcome with emotion, she rushed into my arms as I embraced her warm, soft body. Amidst tears, she exclaimed, "Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, yes, yes. God, how I've come to love you." Lifting her into my arms, I carried her to my bedroom. While I had read about peaks and lovemaking like this, it was my first real experience. Exhausted, I had to lay on her for a few moments. I had never felt so drained. Rolling off her, she nestled close, and we drifted into sleep. We must have slept for quite some time, as the house was shrouded in darkness when we awoke. It had been too long since I had woken up next to a woman I desired. Needing to use the bathroom, I left her briefly. When I returned, Carly had cleaned up and donned one of my long t-shirts from the dresser. It had never looked better on her. Carly took a shower and cleaned up while I slipped the leftover pizza into the oven for a little bit. It always tasted better out of the oven. As we ate pizza, we talked some more. I asked Carly when she wanted to get married. She replied that she wanted it to be as soon as possible. She didn't want to wait. By then, it was about 10 p.m. in the evening. I called Sally Hawk at her house. She answered by asking, "What's the matter, Kevin?" She must have had caller ID. I told her that Carly and I had a problem and maybe she could help solve it, seeing she was a lawyer. What is it, Kevin? I'll help if I can. Carly and I want to get married as soon as possible, but tomorrow is Christmas Eve and we need a judge to marry us. Do you know anyone? Sally started laughing. So, Carly called you, did she? I'm happy for the both of you. Meet me at the courthouse tomorrow morning. We'll get your marriage license and then come to my house. You see, Mr. Hawk, my husband is a judge. I know he'll marry you. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp. The next morning, Carly, who was dressed beautifully, and I, dressed in a suit, met Sally at the recorder's office. We got our license and headed over to Sally's house to get married. Her husband seemed to be a pretty nice guy for a judge. You never know what to expect with lawyers and judges, but we knew Sally was the best. Carly didn't have much family left in the area, just a few distant cousins. So we decided to head up to Michigan and surprise my family with my new wife. To say they were happy or overjoyed would be putting it mildly. Ecstatic would be a better word. They all loved Carly. How could they not? She was definitely part of the family. Wow, Christmas turned out pretty good after all. We had to head back after Christmas. We both had jobs and now had moving to do. We decided to live in my apartment. Hers was on a month-to-month lease anyway. Each day after work, we would move some of her stuff over to my place. It was fun doing just about everything together. The girls where she worked were so happy for her. They said the old Carly was back. Marcia was a bit shocked when she found out I was the new husband, remembering that I was a rebel and very vengeful. I remember Carly telling her, "Don't worry, Marcia. He's a puppy, and I love him dearly." The big New Year's Eve bash was coming up. Most all of the successful business people from the area attended it. I asked Carly, "Sweetheart, want to go to the bash of the year? Our first time that everyone can see us together. I want to show you off. Besides, our ex-spouses might even be there." Carly was thinking, then looked at me and said, "Kevin, I love you with all my heart, and I want everyone to know it. Yes, we will be going to the New Year's party, my dear husband." I watched her starting to get ready. She took out her lacy red silk lingerie and bra that belonged to me, kind of, and said that she was going to wear them that night. She looked over at me and started laughing. "What am I going to do with you? Doesn't it ever stop and take a break?" Looking at the bulge in my pants. "Not with you around," I replied. Off to the New Year's party we went. Carly looked stunning. She had on a red blouse that matched her lacy red silk bra and lingerie perfectly. Lace and silk. It doesn't get much hotter than that, other than the blouse being really low cut to show ample bosom. Her skirt was a black mini skirt with a lace bottom on it. She would have to watch how she sat in that skirt. No matter how she sat, you would see thigh because of the side slit. She looked so good she was dressed borderline trampy, but in a good way. Everyone wanted us to sit at their table, my boss and his group, Carly's friends, and even the few friends I had. Sally and Judge Hawk invited us to their table. That's where we decided to sit. I looked at Sally and told her I never saw a lawyer look that good. She looked fantastic. They introduced us to everyone else at their table. They were mostly judges and their wives and all seemed like pretty nice people. The music was loud, but it was New Year's Eve. Carly and I got up and danced all the slow dances. Other men asked Carly to dance, but her answer was always, "Not this year. I only want to dance with my husband." This was our year to be together. The one exception we made was that I danced one dance with Sally and Carly danced once with the judge. They were special friends. As we were dancing, we found ourselves next to Karen, my ex-wife's sister. It just happened that we almost ran into Karen and her husband on the crowded dance floor. She looked and said, "Oh my God, it's Kevin." I looked over at her and said, "Well, good evening, Karen, and Happy New Year to you." Then I said, "I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Carly. Carly, this is Karen and her husband." He reached forward to shake Carly's hand and said, "Bob, my name's Bob." Carly gave her patented smile and said, "Glad to meet you, Bob and Karen." Then Carly looked at Karen and said, "Didn't we meet before at Robson's restaurant on Old Route 40 about 2 months ago?" Bob replied, "No, that place is too expensive for our tastes." Karen turned white and said, "Nice meeting you two. We have to get back to our seats." We knew she had to get back and tell Jim and Rachel that we were there. We looked over at their table. Rachel knocked over her drink when she found out I was there. We saw them turn to look at us quickly. We could hear Rachel say, "Oh my God, Jim, he's with your ex-wife." Jim almost fell off his chair trying to turn and look. Karen looked at Rachel and said, "Rachel, he introduced her as his wife." Jim said, "That prick set us up. They took us for over $100,000. Plus they set us up to get a venereal disease. How did they know everything?" Rachel said, Kevin told me that someday he would get even with us. Jim said, "Maybe we can try taking them back to court." Karen laughed. "Give it up, you two. Do you guys see who they're sitting with? Sally Hawk and a half-dozen judges, and if that's not enough, Jim, he could kick your behind from here into tomorrow. Make no mistake, Kevin's all man, and by the looks of his wife, she's all woman. They make a great couple." It was after midnight, and the crowds was beginning to thin. Sally and the judge said their goodnights, as well as the people at their table. So after our next dance, Carly and I decided to sit in a booth not too far from Rachel, Jim, and their group. Carly left for the restroom. When she came back, she looked at Jim and Rachel, kind of staring at her and me out of the corner of their eyes. Carly asked me if I was ready. I looked at her and asked, "Ready for what? To go home, honey?" "No, Kevin. Are you ready for your revenge?" As she slipped her lacy red silk lingerie into my breast pocket, kind of sticking up like a hanky. Then in words loud enough for the other table to hear, she said, "Happy New Year, lover." Who said revenge isn't sweet? Happy New Year.